Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rankus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you, everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
We'll bring you the expert interviews, insightful discussions, and practical tips to make motherhood a little easier and help your family thrive.
Please keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace the advice, diagnosis, or treatment plans you have with your personal healthcare team. Please have a conversation with your trusted healthcare provider prior to making any changes or implementing any strategies or advice you learn from this podcast.
Whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Here at the Motherhood Alliance podcast, we challenge the status quo, ask the tough questions, and offer a supportive community for moms who want to make an informed, holistic choice.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Sara Lindgren, a registered nurse, functional nutrition professional, health restoration coach, assistant professor of nursing, and the owner of Inspire Wellness NEW. With over 20 years in healthcare and a passion for functional and integrative wellness, Sara helps people uncover the root causes of chronic illness and guide them towards stronger, healthier bodies. She's all about practical foundational habits like sleep, nutrition, and movement that empower the body's natural ability to heal. And I will say, we go pretty in-depth in the science side of these episodes because, like I mentioned, she's a professor, so she really knows her stuff. When she's not coaching or teaching, you'll find her staying active, enjoying family time on her boat, cheering on her 3 daughters at their music and sports events, or traveling with her husband, Tim. It's time to turn up your volume. Let's welcome Sara to the mic. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. We are super excited to kickstart a brand new 4-part series with Sara. Welcome to the mic, Sara.
Thank you.
We are super excited to be talking all about cortisol and stress. We're going to be talking about gut health. We're going to be talking about autoimmunity. Like, these are going to be some deep dive, maybe a little on the sciencey side of episodes. I'm hoping so, because I like to get nerdy like
I'm
that.
Excited. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I think you are highly qualified, knowing that you also educate people and are a teacher, right? You're associate.
Definitely.
Okay. Where do you teach?
I'm an assistant professor of nursing at Bellin College in Green Bay.
Yeah. Highly qualified, you guys. So you're going to be definitely wanting to take notes on these episodes. But before we jump into the content of today, let's talk a little bit about you, Sara. You were sharing with us that this past summer, your husband and you got to travel to Scotland and Ireland to celebrate your 20th anniversary. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, that was a bucket list item definitely for us for a while.
What was your favorite part of the trip?
Probably going to Galway. Galway was an amazing city. Lots of fun shops, pubs, just nightlife. It was really fun. I always said on my bucket list, I wanted to listen to an authentic Irish band in an authentic Irish pub, and I did. Other thing was we went to Culloden. I'm a big Outlander fan, so love to see that part of the history. Yes.
Yeah. How long were you gone for?
9 or 10 days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Do you feel like that was enough time?
Not to see everything. I felt like it was enough time away from the kids. Starting to miss them. It was our first time away from them for that long. So I was ready to get back to them, but not enough time to see everything we wanted.
Oh, yeah. Like, I guess we'll have to go again.
Yes,
Darn.
definitely. Yep. We're already kind of thinking what we want to do on our next trip.
Right. Well, you just figured out where everything is, and now you're all good to go.
Exactly.
So. How old are your kids right now?
18, 14, and 9, almost 10. My youngest is a New Year's Eve baby.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So a very busy season.
Yes,
of life.
Definitely.
What kinds of things are your kids into right now?
My oldest just started college, so we're getting used to her not being there all the time still, a little bit of an adjustment. She has been wanting to be a vet since she could walk and talk, so she is pursuing the animal science pre-vet down at Platteville. My middle is heavy into dance, soccer, very athletic, and my youngest loves basketball, soccer, gymnastics, so
very
we're busy all the time.
How much fun, though.
Maybe
so fun.
a bit stressful with all that, too.
Well, and they're all girls, so
yeah.
Lots of stress.
And there
Hormones,
you go,
stress,
too.
Perfect lead into all of our topics today.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you are an expert in integrative health, but you started out in traditional healthcare. So I'd love to just hear your journey from traditional healthcare into integrative healthcare.
Sure. I actually started out in exercise science, and when I did my internship in there, I did a lot with nursing, actually in the hospital that I did my internship in, and I decided, well, this is a really interesting field. I actually want to go back. My mom's a nurse, so I grew up kind of around healthcare. And at that time, this was 20 some years ago, functional healthcare wasn't as big, I guess. It wasn't as well known as the benefits of it. So I went into traditional healthcare after graduating from nursing school. I did a year on a med surg floor in Oshkosh. I did about 10 years in the emergency department at Bellin here in Green Bay. So I always say I got really good at helping people put out the fires, but then I wanted to start helping to prevent the fires. When I was in the ER, I loved to precept students and new employees, so I knew that education was going to be my future at some point. And then when I started having kids, stopped wanting to work the swing shifts and holidays, so I went back to school to get my education, or my master's in nursing education. Been teaching for about 10 years now as well, but when I really started to transition into wellness and integrative medicine was right around, of course, 2020 when COVID hit. And the more I learned about it, the more I didn't agree with how it was being handled. It became very clear that the more comorbidities and underlying health conditions that you had, the more likely you were to have long-term or more serious effects from it. So that got me thinking about, well, how can we make our bodies in such a way that they can resist that illness? Because it became clear that everybody at some point was probably going to get it.
Right.
So how do we make sure that when we get it, that we are equipped to fight it off? And that's where I started kind of going down the wellness trajectory. I went to some seminars on wellness, and I got into a program that gave me a certification, or I earned a certification in health coaching. And through some seminars I continued to go through in that, I met registered nurses who owned their own health coaching business. And that opened my eyes. Up to that point, I didn't really, I guess, even think that you could do that without a nurse practitioner license or a physician kind of being over your clinic or wellness modality. And from speaking with them and networking, I really found out more that you could do, independently as a registered nurse and in the integrative field. And that's where I decided I wanted to do my own clinic, or my own practice, and really helping with health coaching, advanced labs. There's so much lab testing you can do that I don't think we even realize, because conventional healthcare just doesn't offer it.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's amazing what you can uncover if you just know what to look for.
Yeah. Well, and I think most of us know what traditional healthcare looks like, the hospital systems, and we've all experienced the different doctor's offices. But I do have a curiosity behind your definition between functional and integrative medicine. What's the difference?
They're very similar. Functional health is looking at how the body truly functions. What minerals, vitamins, nutritional, aspects do you really need to get into the body to help the cells function so the body systems can function so that you feel well. Integrative is very similar, and I think a lot of people use those interchangeably because they are so similar. But integrative is looking at that functional health aspect, but then also integrating other therapeutics, if you will. So for example, detox, like infrared sauna is an integrative option. I offer detox foot baths. That's like an integrative option to help promote detox and lymphatic movement and things like that through the body. So I do feel they're very, very similar, but I feel like integrative is kind of a step up where it takes that functional health, but it also includes more modalities in trying to improve that functional health.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's really helpful. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. We're going to be talking about stress. We're going to be talking about cortisol, all of these things, because this applies to everybody.
Yeah, this applies to everyone.
This applies to everyone, even kids these days.
Yeah,
goodness,
100%.
They're under so much stress. Okay, but let's start out a little bit high level. So when we're talking about stress, are we literally just talking about cortisol levels, or are we talking about like other hormones, things like that? Let's get a little bit sciencey on like what actually is happening to the body, in the body with stress.
Sure. So with stress, cortisol is commonly known as our stress hormone. So that is the main thing that people think about. But when the body is under stress, there are a lot of other hormones that can be released in higher amounts or maybe at a higher rate. So collectively, your catecholamines, like your epinephrine, which is commonly known as adrenaline, norepinephrine, those can be released as well. They function as neurotransmitters, but they also function as hormones. Those along with cortisol, along with thyroid hormone, and if you're a kid, a lot of times you'll have a surge of growth hormone during times of stress as well. But in particular, the cortisol and the catecholamines can really drive a higher heart rate, higher blood pressure, a lot of those kind of fight or flight responses that we talk about when we talk about the sympathetic nervous system. And again, if you're in that fight or flight or that stress response for too long, that's where you can start to see increased risk for high blood pressure, increased risk for increased workload on the heart, which can lead to heart disease, poor sleep habits. Some people, when they're highly stressed, they either don't eat enough or they eat too much, or what they do eat is not the right quality of food. And that drives that stress response even more because now your body's stressed because you're not getting what you need to really support that response. So it's very easy to get caught in a vicious cycle of this stress response, but not necessarily knowing how to turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Can stress actually produce inflammation in the body? Or is this like more so system, like the system to system piece is not working properly?
Yes and no. So stress is, so if it's an acute stressor, for example, I always tell my students, we've all taken exams. If you're taking an exam, you're getting ready to take an exam, you're going to be acutely stressed. You're going to have some cortisol release, some of those catecholamines, because they're meant to help you through the stressor. Cortisol can actually convert to cortisone, which is an anti-inflammatory. So it's meant to help reduce inflammation. However, when you get too much of it, now you have a chronic stress response, but you don't have enough of the pro-inflammatories to help fight off the stress response. So if you have too much or too little of it, you can get into either a disease state or a risk for a disease state. So with chronic stress, it can drive inflammation to a degree because if you are chronically stressed, now you don't have enough of those pro-inflammatories versus anti-inflammatories, because remember, cortisol is anti-inflammatory. So if you don't have enough of the things to put out the fire, that can then drive more inflammation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just depends on what the stressor is. Too much cortisol can in and of itself be a stressor. So again, cortisol, if you ever look at literature of it, it's very complex. There's not necessarily 100% agreement on when it's good, when it's bad, what's too much, or what's not, because everybody's very individual on what they can handle. So acutely, stress is meant to be helpful. The cortisol response is meant to be helpful to deal with the stress, but long term, it drives a lot of problems.
And I feel like that's why we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Right. Because now in today's age, there's a lot of people that are having stress long term.
Yeah.
Do you feel like most of the stress for people long term is going to be more like mental and emotional stress that's coming from the burden of life and the busy schedules and things like that? I mean, I would think it's less physical stress because so many people are sitting, which is also a problem in of itself. But where do you feel like most of the stress is coming from?
So a couple things. So being sedentary is kind of thought of as the new smoking, if you will. It's just as bad for you, just in different ways. Especially in women, because our brains are different than male brains. They're going 50 miles an hour all the time. Even when we're sleeping, we got probably more going on in the brain, and it's just how we're wired. And there's kind of buckets of stress. So there's things that may have physically happened to you or diagnoses you may have had in the past, things like that are stressing the body or maybe have stressed the body. There are toxins that we're exposed to. I always tell my clients, if you breathe air, if you drink water, if you eat food, you have toxins in your body just because of how they're grown or how they're produced or what's in the water, depending where you get that. And then the last bucket is kind of our thoughts, our negative self-talk. And again, females are notorious for that because we have so many things, a lot of us are moms, we have jobs, we running the kids here and there, and it's not to say that males don't do that, but just our brains respond differently to it. And I was actually just listening to a podcast yesterday about toxins and how we detox. And the end of the podcast really said, okay, the last main toxicity, especially with women, is negative self-talk. So yes, like that's a huge thing because your physical body and your, psycho-emotional health, there's a direct connection there. So when you have a lot of psychosocial stresses, it will cause physical manifestations, 100%. If you're constantly worried, you're constantly thinking about what I got to do after work, or I've got this job that I'm applying for, or whatever it is, that in and of itself is a stress, which will release cortisol, which again causes all the detrimental effects long-term that I was talking about earlier. So yes, mental and emotional stresses are a huge bucket that I really start working with my clients on.
Wow.
So where do we go from here? Because we are so busy. A lot of the things we're busy with are good. My husband and I talk about this all the time. It's like, our schedules are really busy, but we both have work that is important. We also have church things that we're attending for women's Bible study, men's Bible study. Our kids go to something. The sports that my son is available to him now at his age. It's like good things, but it's just a lot. So how do we embrace this rest and digest piece that we need to bring into this conversation in our busy world?
Well, good question. And a big part of it is, we have to prioritize. At the end of the day, we always have to prioritize what is the most important, either for yourself or for your family. That's a good place to start. But the other part is there's very simple things that you can do during the day to, maybe there's things, I can't cut these things out. I just have to do all these things. So there's really simple things you can do to at least help turn on that rest and digest at some point, to turn off the stress or the fight or flight responses. So one thing that I work with my clients, for example, one of the first things, especially when we're delving into nutrition, we all eat. There's not a day that goes by unless you're fasting that you're not going to eat something. So I always say we call it eating hygiene. So there's like 4 big things that I'll have them do. And one of the first things is you take 3 deep, very mindful, very methodical breaths before you eat. So I tell them, breathe in for about 4 seconds, like actually count to 4, breathe or hold it for about 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds. And I always kind of joke with them. I say, I do this. And usually when I'm taking that first deep breath, I'm like, I don't have time for this. I take the second deep breath. I'm like, okay, yes, I do. I have to breathe. So why not just do it very methodically? And then by the third deep breath, I'm very relaxed. But you do that before you eat because it turns on the branch of the nervous system that actually helps you digest. If you are eating in a fight or flight mode, even if you are eating the most nutrient dense packed salad, for example, if you don't digest it and absorb it, you're not getting the benefit of it. So you really got to turn on that rest and digest before you eat.
Mentally turn on the rest and,
turn it on. Because again, that mental physical connection is real. So if I turn on that branch of the nervous system and I'm in a more relaxed state when I eat, I'm physically going to digest better. And again, maybe I couldn't count out a bunch of stuff in my day, but I can at least help my body relax when I'm eating. And we always say, make eating an event whenever you can. Sit down to eat. The only part, so another big bucket of eating hygiene is the only part of digestion you can actually control is your chewing. So chew your food very deliberately until it is a liquidy consistency before you swallow, because again, that will help with digestion, which again helps with mental stress and all the other stresses in the body. And then there's a couple other things we go through with that, but especially that deep breathing, because we all have to breathe. That's something we can do no matter if we're at work, if we're at home, if we're sitting watching our kid at the ball game. That's something that you can do. So deep, mindful, methodical breathing is really important.
I could have really used that advice this morning because I was running around like crazy. I had my breakfast, but I'm like, and on. Yeah. And I know this, I've heard this before, but you're right. We do have to breathe, but also I'm like, this is a good way for me to prioritize, like, maybe it's getting up a little bit earlier or just like having things prepped, things like that. Yeah. So that's where you think about that stuff.
Right. And the other thing I work on a lot, I've actually gotten to where I work on this more with clients before the eating aspect, because stress is such a big part of our lives, even if we don't realize it, is we'll work on sleep. A lot of people just don't sleep enough, or their quality of sleep is really poor. And there could be a variety of reasons for that. But if you don't give your body time to recover, you won't ever get out of that rest or that fight or flight mode. And your body cannot heal. It will not heal if you don't give it that time to recover. Your brain literally goes through these different cycles of sleep during your sleep at night as well. And it literally goes through almost like this washing cycle where it will cleanse itself, but only if it gets deep, restful sleep. And that's another big thing that we're missing is because we've got, like you said, all these different things to do. And that's where kind of prioritization comes in. We really need to prioritize a regular sleep routine, turning off the phones before we get into bed, not watching TV in bed, not eating a few hours before we go to bed, because all of that helps support that branch of the nervous system that helps with that rest and digest. And honestly, we call it rest and digest, but it's really rest, digest, heal, and fertility. If someone's having fertility issues, we really need to work on that stress.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like I've heard when people talk about sleep, like it should be completely pitch black in the room. Like, do you have any other setup tips for how people can really maximize their sleep?
Yeah. And most of us don't do this. I'm not going to sit here and say I do it all the time either, but it's good if you can actually leave your phone in a different room. Having, like I said, a good sleep, the environment is important as well, but having that regular routine of when you go to bed versus when you get up. It's best if you don't have pets sleep directly on the bed, because they can often be a source of us waking up, which is disrupted sleep. And then really just if you have like an air purifier or something, even like a little bit of white noise, sometimes that can really help. The room should be a cooler temperature, like 65-ish or so, to facilitate better sleep as well. But those are some of the things that can really facilitate a better sleep environment. Sometimes people get like a good quality sleep mask too, or spray some lavender that helps facilitate sleep because it helps with relaxation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we know that you're an entrepreneur, you're a professor, you're a mom of 3 busy girls, you're a wife. So like, I don't know, where's your stress level at lately?
It's always been high, like I said, with that female brain. Just a little bit of personal insight. About 2 years ago, I did a Dutch test on myself, which is a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And I found out what I thought is they were awful. My cortisol, so kind of going back to cortisol, my cortisol production level was like flatlined. I mean, it was so low, which explained my exhaustion. But if you've ever looked at a cortisol graph, you have this circadian rhythm where it should be lowest at night because you're sleeping, because cortisol is also your awakening hormone. It should peak around 8 or 9-ish, and then it should gradually go down throughout the day. Now, again, that's for people that are awake in the day. If they work nights, it's going to be a little bit different. I don't work nights. My peak of my cortisol was in the night when I should be sleeping.
No. Yeah.
So that helped me know that, hey, not only is my cortisol awful, it's highest at night. So I knew that I needed to really prioritize sleep.
So how do you adjust that graph?
So for me, part of it was that my youngest was getting older. So she was sleeping better. So with her not sleeping well, that wasn't anything necessary I could truly control. My husband and I took turns getting up with her in the night and stuff like that. But that was helping. What I did is I really started prioritizing getting to bed even a half an hour earlier. Like not just getting into bed, but like turning that light off a half an hour earlier. I did do some supplementation with some, it was actually called Sleep, but it was something that contained like some California poppy, valerian root, passion flower, chamomile, it was an organic concoction of things that really helped. It didn't make me sleepy, I guess you would say. It's not like a sleeping pill, but it helped with relaxation. And I found, and I still take it every now and then, it helps me sleep better through the night. So I did that. Really made a conscious effort to like, hey, I'm going to put my phone down between, or, a certain time before I close my eyes, just trying to get the blue light and all that stuff out. So it was a lot of little things that I did to really help with that. But a lot of it was, I always say supplements are hopefully just that. They're not meant to be permanents. But I took several different supplements to support different aspects of that stress response, because I was in phase 3, if you will, of adrenal issues, if you will. Phase 1 is kind of where you had that acute stress response. Phase 2 is where like I'm getting into that chronic stress. So my cortisol is really rising. It's really trying to help me support this ongoing stress. But if you get to this stage of exhaustion where it's kind of like your body says, well, this cortisol isn't helping you, so I'm just not going to make much anymore. Like you deal with whatever's going on and then I'll start making cortisol again.
Oh,
And I was kind of getting into that phase 3 where it's like, it just wasn't being produced very well anymore. So I did do some things, take some supplements, change kind of, again, methodical eating, things like that to really help bring that level back up. But a lot of it was sleep. Had to get my sleep quality improved.
Let's briefly talk nutrition too.
Okay.
Are there certain foods that can help support or make a detriment to this journey of being more in the rest and digest?
Yeah, I mean, whole foods, I mean, we hear that a lot, but foods that don't have any ingredients listed, meaning you go and you buy like a bag of apples, you buy broccoli, like it doesn't have an ingredient list because that's all it is. Or foods that have minimal ingredients. The more ingredients and the more you cannot pronounce them on a label, the more processed they are. And that leads to inflammation, which leads to, again, cortisol is anti-inflammatory. So you're going to try to release more of that to bring that inflammation down. So things that are less processed or whole foods as much as you can. Anything that is high in like your B vitamins is really helpful as well because that just supports adrenal production. And then things that are relaxing, like teas are amazing, like chamomile teas, lavender teas, hibiscus teas, things like that, especially in the evening because they're going to help support that normal adrenal function, but also kind of put you into that more relaxed state as you prepare for bed.
I've done that too with the teas.
Yes.
Yeah. And red light glasses too.
Yep.
Blocking blue light.
Blocks blue light. And even if it, on your phone, if you're like, gosh, I work all the time. I'm on my phone. I can't put it down quite yet. A lot of phones will have that night light on where if you set it for a certain time, it'll at least dim some of that bright blue light, which can help because there's research that shows that blue light will actually reduce your melatonin. And melatonin is something we want for sleep. We want cortisol more during the day to help us make it through the day, just not too much of it. And we want melatonin in the evening to help facilitate sleep.
I found a big difference for me when I'm consistent with it and not. So
that's a big thing. You cannot do something for a day and expect it's going to fix anything.
I feel like we should repeat that because that applies to a lot of things.
Yes. Well, I would say if your doctor gave you 2 weeks of antibiotics and you take one, you're not going to feel better. If you have high blood pressure and you take your high blood pressure pill for 2 days, you are not curing your high blood pressure, So if you do infrared sauna or if you take that supplement for a day, a week even, and you don't feel different, well, you haven't done it enough. You have to be consistent. Have to.
Well, and just to finish out this episode, just bringing it back to you, I mean, you're an expert in this area, but you're also busy. And so this is where we want to learn from you. You've shared a couple of tips already that people can bring into their day-to-day, which is amazing, and I love that. Do you have any other like non-negotiables in your life that help you just stay on track with your own health?
Yes. More recently, probably the last 3 months, I have, and we may talk about this later, but I've started taking bioactive peptides. There's a lot of different ones out there. These are bioactive, so they are natural. They are not synthetic. But it comes in a powder, so it's oral. I put it in my drink, and I drink that in the morning. It has done amazing things for my mood. Not that I ever felt I was down all the time. Like I never had a problem with, anything like that, but I think I got used to being kind of in a funk and I have felt just amazing benefits with taking these every day. And again, every day, when I first started, did I feel a difference? No, but now I'm in month 2, going into month 3. I wake up, I'm like, let's do it. Let's get this day. Let's do it. Let's tackle it. I just feel more joyful. And because of that, that is something, not gonna take it out.
And we will talk more about that in the 4th episode, I believe. But I'm just curious, is that why you started taking it? Was for your mood, or is this just like a great side effect?
Partially, the things that I had read and then the research I'd done, and then in talking with people that had already been in the business for a while, they had talked about how it helps with hormonal balance. And we know that when hormones are imbalanced, that can contribute to mood issues, especially for females in their 40s.
I was going to say perimenopause. Hello.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I also started taking it, just anecdotally, because someone else who'd been taking it for a long time said it was the only thing that helps support the health of her hair. And ever since, I've kind of had kids, like I said, in my 40s, I've definitely noticed some thinning hair. So I was like, okay, got to try it. So it's definitely helping for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for that episode.
I've got a lot of questions triggered already.
Okay. Well, I do want to talk about a couple of the services that you have in your space, because you do offer infrared sauna and Ionic foot bath services. So I'd love for you to tell us more about those, especially the foot bath, because I'm not sure what Ionic means.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about stress, these sound like great de-stressors. So break those down for us.
Yes. So infrared sauna, and it's different than your dry sauna or your wet sauna. Infrared sauna offers 3 different spectrums of rays, if you will, near, mid, and far rays, and they all penetrate the body in different frequencies, so they have different effects. And what the rays do, because they're able to penetrate deeper into body tissues, they actually help with cellular repair and cellular maintenance, cellular function. Whereas your other saunas, they may be relaxing, they may facilitate some sweating, which is good. They just don't have that cellular aspect to it. And again, more consistency is where you're going to feel the difference. But they help with, especially with detoxification, because again, they help mobilize, for example, different toxins that maybe you have stored in the body, and the body does that for a variety of reasons. But by helping to mobilize them, you can then sweat them out. You can then urinate them out. You can then excrete them in stool, but it helps with mobilization of those toxins. So it's a really good integrative modality to help with detox in general, but also relaxation.
How often would you say if somebody could have access to a sauna, how often should they be going in there?
It depends on their health status. So technically, you could probably do it every day if you can tolerate it. And the reason I say if you can tolerate it, it depends on how much toxicity you're holding on to. I had a client, and she has her own infrared sauna, and she started doing it. I don't think she was doing it multiple times a day, but she was doing it several times a week. And she started having nightmares and palpitations and a bunch of stuff, like just very negative side effects. And it's like, okay, you have to slow down how often you're doing that, because she had a lot of autoimmunity issues and things like that. And so she was mobilizing a lot of toxins too quickly, and it was having a lot of negative side effects for her.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
All right, the Ionic foot bath.
Okay, so I love that. It's very simple. You put your feet in this bath, if you will. It's a warm water bath. A little bit of a very pure soda or salt, which when we put what's called an optimizer in there, it provides an electric current, which dissociates the salt into positively charged sodium, negatively charged chloride. And then when we turn on the optimizer, it generates, like I said, an electric current. And what happens is the fluid has salt in it, so it's more hyperosmolar, it's more concentrated than the blood and the lymphatic fluid in the body. So that, by nature of osmosis, draws blood circulation and lymphatic circulation down towards the feet. The electric current helps draw out toxicities. And then they mobilize, if you will, towards the electrodes that are in the water. So you can actually see, it looks disgusting by the time anybody is done.
Really?
And part of it can be, of course, impurities in the water, depending on what kind of water you have that can cause some of the discoloration. But regardless, you're still making that water hyperosmolar, so it's still doing that same thing. And again, it's relaxing. Person doesn't have to do anything but sit there and enjoy it. And I have a patient, or a client, I should say, with chronic Lyme. And one of the things we're doing with her is regular foot baths. Right now, she's kind of on a holiday from it. Because again, she's got a lot of concerns with the Lyme, with how long she's had it. So we take breaks periodically, but she feels a lot better after she does those foot baths.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. How long do you sit with your feet in it?
A max of 35 minutes is the recommendation.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to try it.
And I know, I'm like, how disgusting is that going to look?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And again, the more toxic you are, the quicker you're going to feel a relief, which is why she feels more relief so quickly. But again, it's a relaxation thing too.
All right. Well, I will share with you guys listening, if that piqued your interest, Sara is offering $10 off for your first detox foot bath or sauna session using the code DETOX10. So thank you for offering that. I'm excited to try that because that sounds very intriguing. Sara, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, learn more from you, connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
You can email me, Sara, S-A-R-A, at inspirewellnessnew.com. I can be reached by phone, 920-393-8268. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is at inspirewellnessnew, and then Facebook is the same. I also post a lot on my personal page, which is just Sara Lynn, Saralynn.
Perfect. We have 3 more great episodes coming up. I'm excited to continue to pick your brain because it is deep. And next up, we're going to be talking about gut health. It's going to be a great conversation about detoxing, so kind of continuing that conversation as well. We'll be talking about autoimmunity, and then we led to it. The last episode will be about those peptides. So if you've heard of those but want more info, that's going to be coming up soon. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.